Hey guys, and welcome to day 51 or 52 of social distancing. Wow, I've kind of forgotten everything I used to know about history, so I'm just going to make this topic up. In fact, I'm actually using a topic from the 1973 AP exam. This is before even I was born, and as you know, I am old. This was made by another teacher, or more accurately, edited by another teacher. And I chose this DBQ specifically because the documents themselves are mostly images. You don't have a lot of words to fall back on here. This is mostly images, which means that you're going to have to, do some different type of document analysis to be able to handle this. Oh no! It'll be fine. I am here in my fart chair. I am here with my dog. She is excited to see what I came up with this time. And remember, as always, I try to write this under the same parameters that you guys have. So let's see what we can come up with. All right, documents, of course, are down below. Make sure that you guys have them pulled up. Remember to do this on whatever device that you guys have. If you are doing this on May 4th, May the 4th be with you, by the way, the College Board has a module up on their website that basically lets you log in on the device that you're going to take the AP exam on to make sure that your computer and your browser all work. Might not be a bad idea to stop this video and go ahead and do that and then come back and work on this. That way you know the device that you're working on is going to work. Just something to consider. Okay, let's dive in. Evaluate the relative importance of different causes of public opinion and government policies toward immigration in the period from 1870 to 1929. Yuck. That sounds hard until you put it into English. Oh, there goes my chair. How did the public feel about immigrants, and how did the government respond to those concerns? So, when you think of it that way, this is actually a relatively simple DBQ. So, here's what I need you guys to do. Go ahead and make an outline of your ideas. So go ahead and pause the video for 3 minutes, make an outline of all the ideas that you guys can think of without reading the documents. Go. Okay, here's what I came up with. So we have labor issues post-Civil War. We could talk about the Chinese Exclusion Act. That's a big one. We can talk about nativism. We can talk about the 3K thing I won't put on here, otherwise YouTube will destroy this video. We could talk about new immigrants versus old immigrants. We could talk about the Quota Act, the National Origins Act. We can talk about World War I and, of course, the first Red Scare. I'm not entirely sure why the prompt goes until 1929. I think that might be when one of the laws expired. I don't actually know why they chose that, except for that there was the Great Depression. They didn't want you to talk about that. Either way, I'm not sure why it ends there, but it does. Maybe someone smarter than me can tell me in the comments. Oh, wait, I turned comments off because I don't trust high schoolers. Anyway, now, guys, to go ahead and read the documents and add them to your chart. This should take you about 3 to 5-ish minutes. Go ahead and do that, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, let's go through the documents and see what they are, and then we'll figure out where we can put them on the chart. Here we go. Document 1. Hey, Thomas Nast, the guy that destroyed Boss Tweed, remember him? This is a political cartoon about the Chinese Exclusion Act. And the idea here is that the author feels that the Asian immigrant brings in good things with them, but they're going to be excluded when all of these white immigrants that aren't so great are going to be allowed in. Uh, this is a great point of view cartoon. Again, I am not super huge on like hip statements like some other teachers anywhere else in the country might be, but this is a perfect cartoon for it. And I realize now that after I wrote my essay, I probably should have gone that route with this document. Oh well. Document 2. Hey, this one's in color. Now, this might be the perfect opportunity for the College Board to actually give you guys an exam with a chart in color. Usually they print these in black and white because they're cheap, but we can see one in color. So maybe that's what's going to happen. Now take a look at where you notice most of these immigrants are. It seems like most of them are in the northern cities. So that could be a document or analysis that you're bringing of this document. Immigration at first was localized to basically the north, and it was less of a problem in America for the south. That's going to change. That could be something you talk about in your essay. Okay, document 3. The year is 1903, and this is a pro-prohibition newspaper, which means that these people are more likely to be anti-immigrant because immigrants drank a lot. And of course, prohibition means to stop drinking. So if you give this a read through, it's basically talking about how the immigrants that are now starting to come from Europe are not very godly, and they're not very, like, decent. So this is going to be part of what I'm going to tie into nativism. I might even throw that 3K thing in here as well. Document 4, another political cartoon. The idea that the Bolsheviks that are hiding here in the United States may overthrow the country. Another good document to use the author's point of view. This is another good one. Both of these are. That's why I chose this DBQ. And finally, this one, we could talk about old versus new immigrants. Remember, old immigrants were the ones that came from Western Europe. They were more likely to be literate, more likely to be educated. And then the new immigrants that come after the year 1900 are less likely to be literate and less likely to be down with the whole America thing. So there's going to be some a schism that forms. So that could be a part of your essay as well, which means document kind of looks like this. That's kind of what I see for our chart. Yeah? Sound good to you? Sounds good to me. Okay, now pause the video and very briefly, I want you guys to think of how you would structure this essay. In general, because this is like the type of question is called a continuity and change over time question. Basically means how do like Americans change their opinion about a problem. So the immigration problem is the one that is going to be talked about here. Your paragraph should kind of go in order of the problem. So maybe, well, you guys think about how you're going to structure it, then I'll show you how I did. Okay, so here's how I structured this essay. My intro, I'm going to talk about how after the Civil War, there's a rush of immigration to the United States. The country doesn't want to deal with these immigrants, and the focus is going to shift from non-white immigrants initially to the hatred of almost all immigrants post World War I. My thesis is a little complex. It looks like this. Through early political action against Asian immigration, concerns about new immigrants in the wake of World War I, and a general nativist sentiment in the country, public opinion on immigrants was overwhelmingly negative during the time period, forcing the government to attempt to limit immigration into the United States. So, because the prompt is essentially asking you how do people feel and how does the government react, I kind of had to throw both of those types of phrases into my thesis. My first body paragraph is going to be about the anti-immigration of uh, before 1900. We'll talk about new versus old immigrants. I'm going to do this twice. You'll see why in a second. We're going to talk about most immigrants being in the North, and then we're going to talk about the Chinese Exclusion Act. Next body paragraph, we're going to talk about the incoming new immigrants and how that changes America's perception of white immigrants, and it leads to the first Red Scare. Then my third body paragraph kind of serves as a conclusion, and we're going to talk about the general hatred of immigrants. We'll talk about the 3K thing, then we'll talk about nativism in general, then we'll conclude by talking about the Quota and National Origins Act. That's kind of how I see this going. Okay, go ahead and pause the video. Give yourself about 30-ish minutes to go ahead and write this essay, and we'll see what you guys come up with. Okay, let's review my sample. I'm going to give you guys the same caveat I always give you. I wrote this in less than 30 minutes. I am not a professional author. I mean, yeah, I'm published, but whatever. And follow along in the document that you guys have. Again, our goal is to pass the AP exam. I got to assume a 7 out of 10 is going to be a 4, maybe a 5. So this to me is probably a 7, maybe an 8 or 9. I don't know. I'm not a trained grader. This is a pretty competent essay, though, so I'm going to assume that this one is better than a lot of the ones the graders are going to see, and maybe that'll be enough to have me pass the AP exam. Let's see. After the Civil War, the U.S. was forced to solve many problems domestically. The 4 million freed slaves needed rehabilitation into society, and the South needed to be rebuilt. At the same time, the post-Civil War era saw an increase in European and Asian immigration into the United States. These immigrants were seen as a threat to workers in the United States, as they would work for lower wages, and many refused to assimilate into the American culture. As such, an anti immigrant attitude grew in the United States, known as nativism, and it began to affect all aspects of American life. Through early political action against Asian immigration, concerns about new immigrants in the wake of World War I, Mr. Mullen's farty chair, and a general nativist sentiment in the country, farts are always funny. Public opinion on immigrants was overwhelmingly negative during the time period, forcing the government to attempt to limit immigration into the United States. All right, that's decent. Body paragraph 1. In the post Civil War era, there was a rush of immigration into the U.S., leading to immediate tensions. The first wave of immigrants into the U.S. in this era were old immigrants from Northern and Western Europe. Old immigrants were initially welcomed into the United States because many of them were literate, skilled workers who assimilated into the dominant American culture relatively well. As a majority of these immigrants were white and stayed in cities in the North, immigration initially was a relatively localized issue, mainly contained in northern cities. As more and more immigrants came into the United States, the issues they brought with them led to more problems. Soon, fewer and fewer skilled workers came to the U.S., and instead, unskilled laborers entered the country. This, coupled with the changing role of American labor in the industrialized economy, led to native born Americans having a problem with immigrants. The first group attacked by these nativists were Asians. Being non white, Asians were easily racially profiled and attacked by both average Americans and politicians. These attacks led to the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1893, which limited all Chinese, really any Asian country, immigration into the United States. This became the first in many anti immigrant policies passed by the US government in this era. Again, I brought in a lot of good historical context for document one. Maybe it's explicit enough, maybe it's not. But to me, as a grader, this author, me, knows about immigration patterns, knows about, can analyze a document about where immigration is localized, and discuss the Chinese Exclusion Act and why the Chinese are excluded. That's a pretty decent paragraph. After the Spanish American War, and I only chose that because it happened around the year 1900, immigration surged in the US again. These immigrants were new immigrants coming from Eastern Europe, escaping the chaos of the region that would lead to World War I. These new immigrants were poor, unskilled workers who brought little money and skills into the United States. I said the same thing twice. Their lack of skills and unwillingness to do and willingness to do extremely dangerous unskilled labor for low pay brought down wages for native born Americans, leading to tensions. After the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, there became a growing fear that Eastern European immigrants would bring their anti capitalist sentiments to the United States. As depicted in the political cartoon in Document 4, the author believes that Eastern European immigrants are anarchists who threaten to destroy America from within. This is me going for a hip statement talking about the author's point of view. I almost always go historical context. I tried something different this time. This, coupled with the Palmer raids, outside information, led to a period known as the First Red Scare, where Americans were afraid of both communists but also immigrants who would destroy America. Not bad. Now, this kind of serves as my conclusion. These fears led to a general hatred of immigrants in the United States. Nativist sentiments overran the country during this era. Immigrants were seen as anti American, anti authoritarian alcoholics, hey, alliteration, who did not believe in God, making them a threat to the dominant American culture. This led to the rise of several nativist groups, most notably the Triple K, who protested and attacked immigrants for not being American. At the same time, the U.S. government was forced to act against immigration as well. The Quota Act and National Origins Act were both laws designed to limit the number of immigrants coming into the United States. These immigration restrictions would be in place for years, showing that a nation that is mostly made up of immigrants was not welcoming to those same immigrants. Okay, there you go. There you have it. We are done. We made it through another essay. This is the last one we're doing before the AP exam, so hopefully you guys have found these helpful. We'll see. AP exam could be a little tough. We'll see. I have no idea. They still haven't really given me a sample to look through, so we'll see. It'll be fun. Other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Maybe next time is next year. Oh my goodness, maybe this is the last video I'll make to the current junior class. Ooh. Bye.